Hey guys, I got merch. Check out the links in the description below if you're interested. If not, I don't know. If you're ready.
I'm afraid.
Okay, so I know I don't normally do interviews, but I don't care. A while back, I got to sit down with Mark DeCarlo. He's a voice actor and funny guy. If you watch my channel at all, you'd most likely know him as Hugh Neutron from Jimmy Neutron, but he does a lot of other stuff also. And I interviewed him. I don't know how to intro this. Thank you for agreeing to do a quick interview.
Sure. It's always fun to talk, and things are actually starting to get busy again, which is nice. It's been such a weird 2 years, you know?
I don't want to take up too much of your time, so let's just jump in. Anybody who might be watching that might not be familiar with you, can you give a general introduction to who you are?
I have kind of like two different groups of fandoms. People that know me from my Travel Channel show, Taste of America, where I traveled around and I did like a funny food show.
Look at all those kids. Those kids are dying to put their hand in the pie, and I got to do it.
And then cartoon fans know me from a bunch of different cartoons I've done, probably most notably Hugh Neutron on the Jimmy Neutron show, and my new cartoon show called Bafo the Bear on YouTube.
Don't tell the others, but you're my favorite.
Hugh.
Oh, hi, honey.
Back when I was a bit younger, when Jimmy Neutron was still on the air, I used to, quote your lines all the time to all of my friends. What was your first exposure to, the entertainment world at large?
I started doing plays when I was in grade school, and then in high school, and then I went to UCLA and was really lucky to get into a stand-up comedy group there. Every month we would do a stand-up show, and it would be 5 or 6 of us students, and then we would have a professional headlining comedian, someone who was working locally in LA. And we did it with Gary Shandling, rest his soul, Jay Leno, I think, Seinfeld, I think. A lot of guys before they were hugely famous, but who were working here in LA. Each one of the students, we do about 5-6 minutes. Then the headliner would do about 45 minutes. Then after the show, the headliner would sit down with everybody and go through your whole act. What's your point of view? What are you talking about? Why did you say this when you probably could have said that? And it was like a masterclass in stand-up. It was fantastic. All of those guys were in one group, so I was just super lucky to fall in with such a talented group because it raises your game, I was the funniest guy in my high school, but when you get to UCLA, the pond's a lot bigger. And I was doing improv somewhere, and one of the producers of Jimmy Neutron saw our show and invited me into audition, and I brought in my friend Megan Cavanaugh, who was in the cast at Second City with me, and we auditioned together for Hugh and Judy, and they liked it, and they hired us both.
Was that like your first foray into voiceover work?
You know what? When I was little, like literally in grade school, I would be in the basement with my cassette recorder doing funny voices and doing shows. When I was in college, the barrier to getting into the voiceover world was much, much, much higher. You had to have a demo tape, which was $1,000, because you had to go into a studio and record something with an engineer, and then they would have to cut the tape and edit it and put it together for you, and then make copies of cassettes. Then you'd have to take the cassettes to people and give them to agents. It was, so barbaric compared to the way things are done now. I've got my little iMic here, and we're talking on the internet in HD video, especially voiceover, because you don't age out of it. And there were so many great people doing it. It was hard to break into it. I think a lot of the producers would scout for new talent in the comedy clubs, and they would either get stand-ups or improvisers. In my opinion, improvisers are better because they listen. Improvisers, we walk on stage literally with an empty head. You have to listen to know what to say next. So I think it's a closer analog to actually acting. It turned out that all the people on the Jimmy Neutron cast specifically, and Barnyard and a lot of the other shows that I've done were really good at improvising.
You're obviously very talented, but you were also in the right place at the right time. So it was a kind of mix of like a little bit of luck and a lot of bit of talent.
Yeah, it's analogous to what you guys are doing now on YouTube. When you start, you don't have no idea what you're doing, and you just start doing it because it makes you laugh and it makes your friends laugh, and then it spreads out from there.
So would you say to anybody that might be listening who is interested in comedy or improv or voiceover to really just put yourself out there?
This is a movie studio, a complete movie studio. And what you do with it is only limited by your creativity and your guts. And I don't even think guts factor into it. If you make something that's horrible, no one will see it. So there's really no downside. You're not going to hit a home run the first time you pick up a bat. You have to put in your 10,000 hours.
Nice cock.
If you think you're funny, if you think you're talented, go do it. There's no barrier to entry to get on YouTube.
I feel like a lot of people, when they're first starting out, obviously get discouraged, whether it be what they perceive as they might have a lack of talent or, a lack of resources, but like everybody kind of starts from square one. In a way, that's kind of a blessing in disguise, because if you keep pushing and you keep improving, when you do blow up, people have a catalog that they can go back and watch. Going viral or becoming successful off of your first video or your first performance isn't really the best thing to happen in the long run. If you're making stuff and you're enjoying yourself and you're improving as you go, once that thing does happen, once you get that viewership, they have a whole portfolio that they can then enjoy of your work.
It's, as you know, it's a long slog. We're going through this right now with our Bafo the Bear show on YouTube. We had done a couple of live cartoon events at LA Comic-Con, the last 2 Comic-Cons, which had never been done before, and people freaked out. We had done some videos, and we started doing this weekly show in February, and we don't get, not a lot of people are seeing it, but they're good. It's good quality stuff.
For it's 1,
2,
3 strikes, you're out at the
old ball game.
So as we grow our audience, that's all going to be there in the bank for people to discover.
One of the big reasons I started my channel in the first place was really just to practice video editing. If you can't get hired on something because of lack of experience or whatever, just make stuff. Even if something's bad, like take a look at it and use that for next time. Learn from what is bad and make something good next time,
If you have a good supportive group of friends, they'll tell you when something sucks. Telling me something that you think something I did was great when you don't really think that is not helping me. And you mentioned learning how to edit. Learning how to edit makes you a better writer too.
Yeah.
When we're shooting Bafo the Bear stuff, we'll shoot this much and then we end up using this much, so that the next time I go sit down to write something, I realize we don't need that, we need this. The only way to do it is to do it.
Do you have any interesting stories from the booth, whether like working on Jimmy Neutron or any other shows?
Every scene we would record as written, because our writers were brilliant, and then we would do a crazy pass where anyone could say whatever they wanted and no one would get mad.
When it came to improv, was there any specific situations that you can recall?
I don't know if this line ever made it into the show, but it's one of my favorites. Rob was talking as Carl one day, and he just out of the blue said, "Jesus helps me trick people," and we all just. I don't know if that's in an episode, but
honestly, given the airways, I probably doubt it, but that's amazing.
I doubt it, but it was funny. He says it at Comic-Cons.
What did Jesus do to you? What did Jesus do to you?
Oh, I said Jesus helps me trick people. I don't think people understand, but I can call Jesus and he'll help me trick you. If I'm offending your religious sensibilities, I do apologize. It's a special place in hell for me.
Mel Brooks played Santa Claus.
I had no idea that was Mel Brooks.
Before he came in, his people, they sat this cast down and said, "Listen, Mel's coming in here. Don't bug him. Don't ask him a lot of dumb questions. He's coming in here to work and then he's going to leave. And he's very busy, blah, 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 blah. So don't bring anything in for him to sign. Don't mess with him. You're not fans, you're colleagues." And we said, "Oh, okay, we won't." Everybody brought something to sign, right? But no one brought it out. Literally everybody brought something, but it was hidden behind the couch. He comes in, he's very nice. "Hey, how are you? How are you? How are you?" He looks in the booth and he sees Megan Cavanaugh, who had been in 2 or 3 of his movies at that point. And he went from, "Hey, how are you?" "Megan Cavanaugh, do they know who you are?" And suddenly he was our uncle, and he was hilarious and gregarious. He finishes his stuff and he goes, "That's great. It was great meeting you guys. I hope I get to do it again." And then we're like, "As long as, would you mind? And then he signed a bunch of stuff.
That's
and then
great.
He split. So that was a great, arguably one of the top 5 funniest people of the 20th century. Every Friday from 10 to 2, we would just laugh for 4 hours all the time, every week. The scripts were so strong. The acting was so strong.
Especially since it's a TV show, that's probably what the recording schedule was like, weekly, you said?
Mm-hmm. And we would all record together. A lot of shows don't do that. They record one at a time. And certainly the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah,
all the recording has been solo, which I'm not a fan of.
It's a lot easier to record, especially something like a comedy, when you have people in the booth with you that you can kind of bounce off of, and you can read their performances easier.
Right. I think you get a much better final product. It's harder to arrange all the schedules. I mean, especially if you're dealing with celebrities, they can only be there for an hour. But I absolutely agree with you. The week that I worked on Seinfeld sticks out in my mind because it was the same vibe. Typically, if you've got stars on a sitcom, if they're not in a scene, they're in their dressing room or they're on their phone goofing around. When I did Seinfeld, the people, the leads that were not on stage were in their chairs watching the scene and going, oh, wait, hey, why don't you give her the ball there and you say that line and do this here? And it was everyone was focused on making the show as funny as possible. That's why it's Seinfeld and not some sitcom that got canceled after 4 episodes.
Do you have any favorite lines that Hugh has said in the past? Do you have any particular favorites that stand out to you, or maybe stuff that people asks you to repeat a lot? Because I feel like a lot of his lines are very iconic these days.
Yeah, that's kind of happened on the interweb. I like yeah, Mom says you're grounded. That's one of my favorites. What else? Sugar Booger is something that Hugh would call Judy.
Sugar Booger, come quick! Jimmy's new show is funkerific.
I'm almost positive we made that up at some point. I can't imagine a grown person typing that into a script. And I would call Megan all kinds of horrible, disgusting, funny things, and she would just laugh. So that would encourage me to do it more. The pie stuff and the duck stuff, those lines. I will live. There's a lot of memes of Hugh out there. I think he was sort of the philosophically the Kramer of our show. Nothing you can think of was too bizarre to be believable that Hugh would do or try to do. Hugh's going to dress up like a duck and go down to the school and talk to kids, or he's going to have pie day and whatever. A lot of times people will say lines to me that I just do not remember ever uttering. We would record and then the show would come out 9 months later. So I would watch an episode and half the stuff in the episode I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, there's really a huge gap between recording for an animated show and it gone through production.
We record the dialogue, then they would cut that dialogue to 21 minutes or 11 minutes, whatever it happened to be for that particular episode. Leaving in what they think the space would be for all the actions, right? Because there's lots of time on screen where the characters aren't talking, but stuff's happening. So let's say we got an 11-minute audio track, no sound effects, no nothing, just dialogue. They send that to the animators. The animators animate the characters, put in the backgrounds, la 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 la. Then it would come back to us to do line changes, add a joke if you're off screen, do little fixes here and there to the final thing. Then they would lock the picture. Then they would add the music and the sound effects and stuff like that, and then it would be done. So every episode would come back to us at least once. So on a typical Friday, we would record 1 or 2 episodes, and then we would do fixes from 6 months ago.
It's a really common misconception online that animation is easy. It's very much not. Obviously, especially like at the time, doing 3D animation in the time period that Jimmy Neutron existed in was much harder than it is now.
They invented a lot of software and techniques that are in wide use today just because they had to. Go look at an old Warner Brothers cartoon. If the coyote runs off the ledge and there's nothing underneath him, and then he falls. If he runs out, if he does it too fast, it's not funny. If he hangs there too long, it's not funny. Yeah. There's an optimal time period. That's all that stuff had to be timed out with a grease pencil and a razor blade and film. During production for Neutron, it wasn't as archaic as the Warner Brothers stuff, but it was still very early in that process. So to get the timing funny You know, to maximize the funny in the timing was a really difficult thing to do that I think they did really well, and I have no idea how.
I think it's kind of fascinating that, you know, to be an animator in the first place, it obviously takes a lot of talent, but to be a good animator that knows, you know, solid timing for jokes, especially when you're timing your animation to audio of like, you know, you guys talking as your characters, making sure that the actions line up so that it makes the joke even funnier than it is just as audio. That takes so many different bits of talent and combines it into one profession. So I have a lot of respect for people that are able to do that.
And it's the subtle stuff in a face, you know, it's the raising of an eyebrow. It's the, there's all, you really have to be a kinesiology person. You have to understand how muscles work, how the body works.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a sense of humor.
The animators have to have just as much of a sense of humor as the voice actors do.
There are a lot of talented artists who aren't necessarily good animators. They can draw something that looks beautiful, but if it's not alive,
sometimes frame by frame an animation could look messy, but all together it can look amazing. I actually wanted to bring this up because I had just thought about it when we were talking about some Hugh Neutron lines earlier. How did you come up with Hugh's voice?
I got invited to audition by my friend Paul Marshall. I don't know what the medical term for what he has or what he is, but it's like whatever the shiniest thing in the room is, he's focused on it for a second, then he's very easily distracted when he's talking to you, and he never finishes a sentence, and he's very disjointed and really, really smart. So I thought it would be really funny if this genius kid had an idiot dad who was just clearly the dumbest guy in town.
I'll be in my workshop, which is sort of like my secret garden. Ooh, I feel so light and airy.
The stuttering and that stuff is, I ripped it off from one of the producers, Paul Marshall, because that's how he talks. And then I changed the voice a little bit. But where he would start talk, and then he would go over, and then maybe he would, well, you know. And it would all make sense to Hugh, but it wouldn't really make sense to anyone else who was actually listening to his words. I just thought it was funny.
It would not be the same without the contrast between Hugh and Jimmy, you know, intelligence-wise, because it was always, you know, as a kid, it was hilarious that there was just this like insanely smart kid and his dad is just this like kind of bumbling guy. Having
the kid be the smartest character is great for kids that are watching, right?
Oh yeah,
Most of the shows, the grown-ups are the smart people and they're telling kids how to do, what to do, and then the kids have to follow along. But by reversing that, it's very empowering for the kids that are watching. You know, I didn't certainly, you know, cogitate that out consciously, but I think that's certainly how it played out over time.
Warning. This is the part in the interview where I get into my really weirdly specific hyper-focus that I had as a child. I'm not kidding when I say this. About 4 people that watch this are going to care that I talk about what I'm about to talk about. But if you're one of those 4 people, you are in for a ride. Were you in Thumb Wars?
Who are you?
I am Ooby-Doo Banooby. I have the silliest name in the galaxy.
That old like
I was in all
Star
of them.
Wars Thumb parody. Oh, you were in all of the Thumb parodies.
I was not in the Blair Thumb. I wasn't in that one. But that's a those are Steve Odenkirk projects, and they're hilarious.
Has anybody ever brought that up to you at all?
Yeah, it's weird. The people that know about the Thumb, you know, it's Thumb Wars, Franken Thumb, God Thumb, Thumbtanic. There's probably a couple others that I don't remember. The people that know that stuff are like huge, rabid fans of it.
Oh, there's my trick knee.
Steve would put our heads in a vise and shoot just static video of our faces. Then he would strip out the eyes and the mouth and put them, we'd have little dots on our thumbs. Then they would affix the moving video of the face to the thumb, and they would dress the thumb up in costumes and then act out parodies of these movies. And I remember the first time the producer, Paul Marshall, called me and he goes, "We want you to come down and record this thing." "All right, what is it?" I goes, "Well, we're gonna do a version of Titanic with talking thumbs." I said, "Paul, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And I thought he was kidding, and then it turns out to be something really funny.
Tell us your story, old one.
Well,
Give us but a rare glimpse behind the withered curtains of your mind.
When those specials were first airing on television, I remember I would always mark my calendars. I'd be like, I gotta see this the moment that it hits broadcast.
I know he's working on a new Star Wars one. It just hasn't come out yet.
Oh, that's really exciting to hear, actually. That's exciting for me specifically because I'm a huge fan of these things. Sometimes I even post clips of it on Twitter, and people are like, "What is this? Where's this coming from?"
I don't take money, only girly giggles.
What do you mean?
You've got to giggle like a girl. Half now and half when we reach Daldar.
What if we should choose not to?
Looks like you don't have much choice.
And
it's kind of like Mystery Science Theater. It was kind of a genre unto itself.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there was this series of viral videos called The Annoying Orange that uses a similar technology where they map certain things like the eyes and the mouth onto whether it be a still image or like an object. Like you guys, you put your eyes and mouths on thumbs.
Hey, Apple. Hey Apple. Hey, Apple. Hey. Orange, you glad I didn't say apple again? Hey, Apple. You look fruity. Hey, Apple.
Also, you had mentioned that you had worked on Seinfeld at one point. Can you talk a little bit about that? Well, what did you do on the crew?
I just did an interview for TV Guide a little while ago. It's a top 20 Seinfeld episode. It's called The Face Painter.
Hey, did I see you on TV at the Ranger game? Were those your seats right behind the glass?
Those are them, yeah, season tickets. Yeah.
It was a little more structured than Neutron for sure. We couldn't just, especially as a guest star, you can't go in and just start riffing and goofing around. But they were very open to ideas.
That's awesome. I actually never knew that you were in that show until you had brought it up. That was also a show that I watched when I was younger, and I would watch all these episodes whenever they would air on TV. So, Bafo the Bear is this show that you're currently working on for YouTube. It's like a web show. Can you tell people a little bit about that? It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I partnered with a VFX supervisor here in Hollywood who's done designs and operates all the animation for the Marvel movies, Benjamin Button, Polar Express. He's like the guru and the inventor of this motion capture animation technology. So as a side project, he and I in 2019 wanted to do a version of Whose Line Is It Anyway live on stage. And we had Bafo the Bear in a holo box as the cartoon host. So he was interacting with people live in the audience, talking to people in the front row. It was the most downloaded thing of the 2019 Comic-Con, blew people's minds. Last December, we kicked it up a notch and we did a live talk show where Bafo and whoever he's interviewing are sitting in two chairs on a set at Comic-Con Live doing a talk show. We have a bunch of those interviews and we started putting them out on YouTube as part of the overall Bafo show. As the metaverse is a game changer for the internet, this technology is going to be a game changer for animation. The history of
Live animation is actually kind of really interesting. I think the first example of it that I had ever seen personally was on Fox. There was an episode of The Simpsons where the credits were actually a unique live animated test where it was Homer sitting behind his desk and he would take calls. It was very stilted, did not really work that well because, that show was animated in 2D, and at the time, they didn't really have the technology to make it look organic where, he's moving around and stuff. His words wouldn't really match up with, what his face would look like. It was very jank.
Because they had pre-produced the animation, and then they were trying to
apply it,
adapt
live.
it to what Dan was saying. But it's different. Yeah, it's that idea. That's where it started. Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of the term VTuber before. Have you heard about that at all? Or?
Oh, the avatars that are doing shows.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of VTubers before, and their stuff looks great. Live animation is something that's very hard to do. So sometimes when something, a little tiny something is off, it can be off-putting to a viewer. But when,
especially the lip sync.
Oh yeah, especially the lip sync. A lot of times their lips don't really match up to what they're saying. And you know, if it's a live stream, right, you know, you can kind of bypass that at some point as a viewer. Like, it doesn't really matter all that much as long as they're funny enough to carry it, and a lot of them are. But something interesting about Bafo that I noticed is that the way that you're recording it, the way the fur looks and like the lip sync is actually very, very good. It looks great.
Well, it's a system that was developed for feature films with $200 million budgets. And because he was the guy that wrote the code and designed the hardware, he was able to create a system for us that is feature film quality. We're doing it in 4K with moving hair and moving fur. And we're live streaming it.
You have this niche that you want to fill that you think hasn't been filled all that much. And I don't know, it's great to see that, like, you have like your own unique ideas on the industry as it exists, and I think you are bringing something unique to the table.
We're partnering with famous voiceover people and saying, all right, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be? A giraffe? Okay, give me 2 weeks. We'll make you a giraffe. Luckily, we have access to some of the funniest people in the English language here in California, and we want to use them.
I'm really excited to see where Bafo goes from here. I can't wait to see what you guys do with it, you know, in the coming months, years, you know, however.
Yeah, we're putting out new stuff every week. Got a lot. We still have a lot of interviews from Comic-Con that we haven't released, and we'll be doing more Zooms. And, you know, we're just trying to figure out what people want to see, which is an interesting process. Because again, it's not like TV. I'm learning how to be a YouTuber, which is different than being a broadcaster.
Definitely, you know, it's a learned trait. You'll get it. It everything comes in time. Even I'm still figuring it out, and I've been doing this for like what?
I think you have it pretty well figured out. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think you got it.
So yeah, that's really the end of our time together. Do you want to promote anything? You want to put anything out there? Maybe you want people to see or follow you?
Yeah, just Bafo. We're putting out new Bafo stuff every week. We'd love it for you to come by and check it out and subscribe and click the bell and do all that stuff. We're trying to get as many people on the bandwagon as possible. And when we do our live broadcasts, you can call in, you can Skype in and talk to a bear. You know, where else are you going to be able to do that on a Thursday night?
So anything else you want to say before we sign off for the day? Or
I'm a fan of yours. You may not think so at this point, but you're already in the animation business, because the television animation business is dead or dying. And where the cool stuff is coming from is you and people like you on YouTube, inventing and being creative and playing with this new toolbox that everybody has. So it's exciting to see all this weird stuff and see the quality of it is really amazing to me, and it's really inspiring. And I feel like there's a whole new generation and iteration of comedy animation that's developing right now.
I mean, there's definitely a whole new wave of animation coming from very passionate teams of people that are focusing all of their efforts on YouTube, on platforms online. Yeah. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do an interview today. I know you probably have a very busy schedule with everything coming up. But again, yes, I very much appreciate you sitting down with me.
You're very welcome, Salty. And thank you. Have a great week. And hopefully we get to meet in the real world sometime.
Yep, sounds good. I'll hit you up if I'm ever in the area.
All right. Thanks, Derek. Take it easy.
Right. Yeah, take it easy. Have a good one. Hey guys, I know this was a little bit of a weird video in between some of my bigger projects, but if you want me to interview anybody else, let me know. I really, really enjoy interviewing people. I don't know, maybe this is just how I get my sick kicks. Anyway, more videos coming soon. Love you, bye.